The morning sun, thick and golden as honey, poured through the large bay window of our dining room, illuminating the million tiny dust motes dancing in the air. I held my mug of decaf coffee, letting the warmth seep into my palms, and watched the light paint the walls of our dream home in Silverwood. Every corner of this house felt sacred, a testament to survival. For 3 long, agonizing years, these walls had absorbed my silent tears, witnessed my hope crumble each month, and held the quiet, suffocating tension of our struggle. But now, all of that was gone. The air was finally clean, sweet with the scent of freshly cut grass from the lawn, and the promise of a new life. A life I was growing right here, under my own heart. My hand rested on the gentle, firm swell of my belly, and a wave of pure, unadulterated joy washed over me. This was it, the finish line. Today was our final, triumphant appointment with Dr. Cole at the fertility clinic, not as desperate patients, but as a success story, a graduation. "There's my beautiful girl." Jason's voice, warm and familiar, broke my reverie. He came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my shoulders and pressing a kiss to my temple. "And my other beautiful girl," he added, placing a large, warm hand over mine on my belly. He smelled of his expensive sandalwood soap and fresh coffee. His smile, when I turned to face him, was as dazzling as ever, but something in his eyes didn't quite match it. A flicker of static behind the bright facade, a nervous energy that he couldn't seem to shake lately. He'd been like this for weeks, jumpy and distracted, a stark contrast to the steady, unflappable man I had leaned on for so long. "Just first-time dad jitters," he'd say with a dismissive wave of his hand whenever I asked. "It's a lot to take in, a whole little person." "Are you excited for the appointment?" I asked, trying to push away the tiny, nagging whisper of unease. "I wrote a thank you card for Dr. Cole. I want her to know she gave us our miracle." "Yeah, can't wait," he said, his voice a little too high, a little too forced. He moved away from me, busying himself by needlessly rearranging the mail on the granite countertop. "It'll be great to finally be done with that place. Close the book on it for good." His movements were jerky, and he nearly knocked over the sugar bowl. "Jason, honey, are you sure you're okay?" I walked over and placed my hand on his arm. His muscles were rigid beneath his shirt. "You seem like you're a million miles away. We should be celebrating." He finally stopped fidgeting and looked at me. He took a deep breath, and for a second, I thought he was going to tell me something real. His mask of cheerful confidence seemed to slip, revealing a raw, hunted look underneath. But then, it was gone. The charming smile was back in place, the one he used for business deals and difficult relatives. "Of course I'm okay, Alice. I'm ecstatic. I'm just overwhelmed. In a good way," he recited, the words sounding rehearsed. "This is everything I've ever wanted. You, this house, our baby." He pulled me into a hug, but it felt stiff, performative. Everything we've ever wanted. I let myself sink into the embrace, choosing to believe the words and not the strange, cold current running beneath them. He was a good man. He had held me through every crushing disappointment, reassured me through every invasive procedure, and loved me with a fierce loyalty that was the bedrock of my world. I had to trust him. This was our dream coming true. I wouldn't let my own anxieties tarnish it. The future was a bright, cloudless sky, and I refused to see shadows where there were none. The waiting room of the Tallahassee Fertility Clinic was a familiar landscape of muted blues, abstract art, and the gentle, gurgling sound of a tabletop fountain. I remembered sitting in these very chairs, my hands clenched in my lap, my stomach churning with a toxic cocktail of hope and dread. I remembered the faces of the other women, each one a mirror of my own quiet desperation. But today, I felt a serene detachment from it all. We were the ghosts of success, passing through one last time to say our goodbyes. I picked up a magazine, smiling at Jason, but he was staring at the floor, rhythmically tapping his foot, a machine gun of nervous energy. He looked more like a man awaiting a verdict than one celebrating a victory. "The Williams party," a nurse called, and we were led back to Dr. Cole's office. It was a sunlit room, far more personal than the waiting area, with photos of smiling babies taped to the side of a filing cabinet. Our babies, Dr. Cole called them. Well, look at you two, Dr. Cole said, beaming as we sat down. She was a sharp, compassionate woman in her 50s, whose calm demeanor had been a lifeline for me. Clara, you are glowing. The charts look phenomenal. The 20-week scan was perfect. You are officially the most boringly healthy pregnant patient I have. Tears of gratitude pricked my eyes. We couldn't have done it without you, doctor. I can't thank you enough. I glanced at Jason, hoping he would add something, but he just sat there, his smile plastered on, his knuckles white on the armrests of his chair. He looked like a man bracing for impact. It is truly my honor, doctor, Cole said, her warmth filling the room. Her gaze then shifted to the thick manila folder on her desk. Now, just a bit of housekeeping as I close out your file for our records. Let's see. We have all of Clara's hormonal panels, the records of the IUI cycles. Her voice trailed off as she flipped a page. She stopped, her brow knitting into a deep furrow. She looked down at the paper, then up at Jason, then back down at the paper. The professional smile on her face dissolved, replaced by a look of utter, unadulterated confusion. A cold, heavy silence fell over the room, broken only by the hum of the computer. Is something wrong? I asked, my voice a small, trembling thing. My heart began to thud against my ribs, a slow, heavy drumbeat of dread. Doctor? Cole took off her glasses, polished them on her white coat, and put them back on, as if hoping the words on the page might rearrange themselves. Jason, she said, her tone having shifted from friendly to cautiously professional. I seem to have a rather significant discrepancy in your file. I'm sure it's just a clerical error from your GP's office, but I need to clarify it before I can officially close this case. Jason just swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing. He couldn't seem to form words. Dr. Cole looked at him directly, her gaze level and serious. Her voice was quiet, but it landed with the force of a physical blow. Sir, she said, the word hanging in the sterile air. This is impossible. According to the complete medical history we received, you underwent a vasectomy 10 years ago. The world didn't just stop. It fractured. The air turned to glass in my lungs, and every sound in the room, the ticking clock, the distant hum of a floor polisher, my own ragged breath, became deafeningly loud. I felt as if I were falling from a great height. My mind refused to process the sentence. It was nonsense, a mistake. But then I turned my head, slowly, mechanically, and I saw my husband's face. It was the face of a guilty man. Ashen, sweating, his eyes wide with the terror of being caught. And in that single horrifying instant of clarity, my gaze drifted down to my own body, to the impossible, miraculous life swelling within me. The life that Jason Clark, my loving husband, my rock, my partner in this long, painful journey, could not possibly have given me. The miracle was a lie. Our life was a lie. And in the sterile, silent clinic, my entire world shattered into dust. The 2-hour drive back to Silverwood was a journey through a nightmare. The familiar green canopy of oaks arching over the highway looked menacing, their shadows like grasping claws. Arching over the cheerful billboards advertising sunny Georgia beaches felt like a cruel mockery. I sat bolt upright in the passenger seat, my arms wrapped around my belly in a futile attempt to shield my daughter from the truth that was poisoning me from the inside out. Jason drove in absolute silence, his hands locked on the steering wheel in a death grip. The air in the car was thick and toxic, heavy with the weight of his colossal, life-altering lie. Every breath I took felt like I was inhaling shards of glass. When we finally turned onto our street, he couldn't bear the silence any longer. His voice, when he spoke, was a pathetic, rasping whisper. Alice, honey, please, just say something, anything. I turned my head to look at him, and I felt a chilling detachment, as if I were observing a stranger. The man I thought I knew had vanished in Dr. Cole's office, replaced by this weak, deceitful creature. What words do you think exist for this, Jason? I asked, my voice flat and devoid of emotion. Is there a vocabulary for finding out your entire marriage is a fraud? That your husband let you believe you were barren while he was the one who was sterile? Tell me. I'd love to know. It's a mistake, he pleaded, his voice cracking, his eyes darting frantically between me and the road as he pulled into our driveway. It has to be. A records mix-up. Williams is a common last name. Clark is a common last name. It's gotta be someone else's file. We'll call them, we'll sue them. We'll get it sorted out, I swear. His excuses were so transparently false, so insulting to my intelligence, that they sparked a tiny flicker of white-hot rage in the frozen wasteland of my shock. A vasectomy isn't a typo. It is a deliberate surgical choice. A secret he had chosen to keep from me every single day. A mix-up, I repeated, the words like poison on my tongue. So for 3 years, you sat in waiting rooms. You held my hand while I got poked and prodded. You comforted me while I sobbed over negative pregnancy tests. You watched me inject my body with powerful hormones that made me sick and emotional. You let me believe I was defective, Jason. You let me hate my own body, all while you knew. You knew it was you. It was always, always you. No, it wasn't like that, he insisted, his voice rising to a hysterical pitch as he slammed the car into park. I swear, Alice, I love you so much. I couldn't stand the thought of you looking at me with disappointment. I thought maybe it could reverse itself. I read online that it can happen sometimes. It's rare, but it's possible. This baby, our baby, she's a miracle. That proves it. It's our miracle. He dared to use the word miracle against me. He was trying to twist his sociopathic deception into some kind of romantic, protective gesture. The love I'd felt for him, the foundation of my entire adult life, began to curdle into a black, toxic substance in my chest. I was looking at a complete stranger, a cruel, selfish coward who had built our beautiful home not on love, but on a bedrock of lies. I got out of the car without another word, leaving him to stammer in the driver's seat. The silence that fell between us now wasn't just heavy, it was the silence of the grave. It was the sound of our marriage dying. The house was a prison. Every object, every photograph, every piece of furniture we'd chosen together was now tainted, a prop in the elaborate stage play of our marriage. I lay awake in our bed, the king-sized mattress a vast, cold desert. Jason was in the guest room, a retreat I'd demanded with a single icy stare. I could hear the floorboards creaking as he paced relentlessly, a caged animal of his own making. Floorboards creaking. Sleep was a distant country I couldn't reach. My mind was a relentless projector, replaying the scene in Dr. Cole's office, Jason's pathetic denials, and every single moment of our infertility journey, now recast in a horrifying new light. His comforting words now sounded like mockery, his supportive gestures like cruel acts of manipulation. I knew he was lying. His flimsy excuses about a clerical error were an insult, but I needed more. I needed physical proof, something I could hold in my hands to anchor me to this new, terrible reality. I needed to see the lie in black and white. Sometime around 2 a.m., when the pacing in the guest room had finally stopped, I slid out of bed. The moon cast long, eerie shadows across the hallway as I crept towards his home office. My heart was pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. This felt like a gross violation of privacy. But what was that compared to the violation he had perpetrated against my body, my mind, and my heart for 5 years? I went straight to the old metal filing cabinet in the corner, the one he jokingly called his crypt of ancient history. The drawer labeled medical squeaked open, a sound that seemed to scream in the stillness of the house. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely read the labels on the folders. Old dental records, a receipt for setting a broken arm in college, insurance forms, and then, at the very back, tucked inside a larger folder for a life insurance policy, I found it. A single, tri-folded piece of paper, yellowed with age. It was from the Tallahassee Men's Health Clinic, dated 11 years ago. The letterhead was crisp, the language cold and clinical. It was a surgical consent form for a vasectomy, and there, at the bottom, was his signature, Jason Clark. Bold, clear, and damning. A wave of dizziness washed over me, and I had to brace myself against the cabinet. It was real, undeniable. He hadn't just forgotten or omitted it. He had deliberately hidden it. Fueled now by a cold, righteous fury, I moved to his computer. The screen glowed, asking for a password. I tried our anniversary. Access denied. I tried my birthday. Access denied. Then, a sick, cold premonition washed over me. With trembling fingers, I typed in the date from the consent form. March 31, 2025. Access granted. A strangled sob escaped my lips. He had used the date of his most profound betrayal, the day he chose to build his future on a lie, as the key to his digital life. My nausea intensified as I navigated to his archived emails. It didn't take long to find the thread. The subject line was simple: procedure confirmation. The body of the email was a bland, automated message. But beneath it was a forwarded message, sent the same day. Sent to his brother, Chris. "It's done," the email read. "Can't ever risk having kids. You know why. Don't tell a soul, especially not mom and dad. This one stays between us. Owe you for the support, man. You know why." The 3 words sent a chill down my spine. This wasn't just about not wanting kids. This was about a secret so significant he would surgically alter his body to keep it. And Chris, his kind, jovial brother, who had looked so thrilled at our pregnancy announcement, was his confidant. The lie wasn't just Jason's. It was a family conspiracy, a web of deceit I had unknowingly walked into. I sat there in the oppressive darkness, the cold blue light of the monitor illuminating the silent tears streaming down my face. I finally understood. This wasn't just about infertility. This was about a secret rot at the very core of the man I had married. The first light of dawn was filtering through the kitchen blinds when Jason finally emerged from the guest room. He looked terrible. His hair was a wreck, his eyes were bloodshot and puffy, and his face was pale and drawn. He looked like a man who had been to war and lost. I was sitting at the kitchen island, a sentinel in the wreckage of our life. In front of me, laid out on the cold granite like exhibits in a murder trial, were the printed email to Chris and the yellowed consent form. He saw the papers, and the last vestiges of hope drained from his face. He visibly crumpled. "Alice!" he croaked, his voice raw. "We can fix this. I can fix this. Please, just let me talk." "There's no more talking, Jason," I said. My voice was unnervingly calm, the eerie quiet after a devastating storm. The grief had burned itself out, leaving behind a core of glacial fury. "There is only the truth. You had a vasectomy 11 years ago. You lied to me every single day of our 5-year marriage. You watched me inject my body with chemicals and convinced me I was broken. And your brother, Chris, helped you keep your disgusting secret." Each statement was a nail in his coffin. He flinched, abandoning all pretense of denial. He sagged against the doorframe and buried his face in his hands, his shoulders beginning to shake with loud theatrical sobs. It was a performance of guilt, a play for sympathy, and for the first time in my life, his tears left me utterly cold. "I was going to tell you," he wept into his hands, the words garbled and pathetic. "I swear to God, Alice, I was. Every day I woke up and thought, today's the day. But I couldn't. I love you too much. I saw how desperately you wanted a child, and I couldn't be the person to destroy your dream. I couldn't bear the thought of you looking at me with hatred, of you leaving me." The sheer, staggering audacity of his excuse took my breath away. He was attempting to reframe his years of psychological torture as some kind of noble, selfless act of love. He was painting himself as the tragic hero, protecting me from a truth he was too cowardly to face. "You couldn't bear my disappointment, so you chose to let me live in a state of constant pain and self-loathing instead?" I asked, my voice rising, sharp and cutting as a razor. "You let me think my own body was betraying me? Do you have any idea what that does to a woman? To feel like you are fundamentally failing at the one thing you're supposed to be able to do? That isn't love, Jason. That is a level of cruelty and cowardice that I can't even comprehend." He looked up at me, his face a grotesque mask of tears and desperation. "It was a mistake, a stupid, horrible mistake I made when I was a different person, A scared kid. I was terrified. I didn't want to pass on the problems in my family. You know why? I quoted, my voice dripping with ice. What is it, Jason? What is the great, dark Clark family secret? What is so awful that you would rather live a lie, gaslight your wife, and fake a family with a child that isn't even yours? He just shook his head, sobbing brokenly. I can't. Please, Alice, don't make me say it. And in that moment of his pathetic, self-serving refusal, I saw him with perfect clarity. His regret wasn't for the years of pain he had inflicted on me. It was for getting caught. His love wasn't for me, but for the perfect, respectable life he had meticulously constructed around his lies. He was a hollow man. I stood up, my chair scraping harshly against the hardwood floor, the sound echoing the scraping of my life being torn apart. I am pregnant, Jason, I said, my voice low and final, with a child who is not yours. My life, the one you swore to protect, is in ruins because of you. And you are still, right now, more concerned with protecting your pathetic secrets than with the devastation you have caused. We are done. Get out of my house. The 2-hour drive to my sister Jessica's apartment in Atlanta felt like an escape. I was a refugee fleeing a war zone, the comfortable suburbs of my life, now a landscape of ruin and betrayal. The moment Jessica opened her door and saw my tear-streaked, hollowed-out face, she didn't say a word. She just pulled me inside and wrapped me in a fierce hug. And in the safety of her arms, the dam of my rigid composure shattered completely. I collapsed onto her worn velvet sofa and sobbed, a raw, primal sound of grief and rage. Between ragged, heaving breaths, I told her everything. The clinic, doctor. Cole's words, the years of lies, the consent form from Tallahassee, the damning email to Chris. Jessica listened, her expression shifting from shocked sympathy to a cold, hard fury. She was a prosecutor, and her world was defined by right and wrong, by evidence and justice. She refilled my mug of tea and sat beside me, her presence a solid, grounding force in my spinning world. Sat beside me. He's not just a liar and a cheat, Alice, she said, her voice sharp with a lawyer's precision. What he did is a form of profound psychological abuse, coercive control. He systematically dismantled your self-worth for years to protect his own ego. That's monstrous. And Chris? God, I can't believe Chris was complicit. He stood at your wedding and gave a toast about honesty. The irony was so bitter, it made me want to scream. I don't know what to do, Jess, I whispered, feeling like a child again, small and lost. My entire life is a fraud. The man I promised to love, the family I married into. It was all a performance. None of it was real. No, Jessica said, taking my hand, her grip firm and resolute. He is a fraud. Your love for him, your hope for a family, that was real. Your pain is real. And this baby, she said, her eyes softening as she looked at my stomach, is real. You have this baby who is a part of you, no matter what. You have me. You have a future that is honest and your own. He is the one who has built his life on nothing. We sat in silence, the distant sounds of Atlanta traffic a dull roar below. I watched the afternoon light move across her living room floor, and I felt a new emotion begin to stir in the pit of my stomach, displacing the grief. A pure, clarifying anger. It felt clean. It felt powerful. His parents' 40th anniversary party is in 2 weeks, I said, the thought surfacing slowly, but with perfect clarity. He's been obsessed with it for months. It's at their house in Silverwood. He keeps talking about how proud they are of him. The successful son, the stable husband, finally giving them their first grandchild. His entire self-worth is tied up in their approval, in that perfect public image. A dangerous, brilliant spark lit up Jessica's eyes. It was a look I knew well, the look she got right before a closing argument. Oh, he has he? A plan, audacious and wildly melodramatic, began to blossom in my mind. It was a plan born of shattered trust and righteous indignation. It felt insane, but it also felt like the only possible path forward. It felt like justice. Jason Clark had hidden his monstrous truths behind a carefully curated facade of public respectability. The only way to truly hold him accountable was to demolish that facade in the most public way imaginable. His parents, Charles and Martha, they deserve to know who their son really is, I said, my voice gaining strength and conviction with every word. All of their friends deserve to know. He wants to be the star of the show, the golden boy? Fine. I'll give him a grand finale he and his family will never, ever forget. Jessica's lips curved into a fierce, protective smile. Okay, sister, she said, squeezing my hand tightly. Let's go over the script. You've got one hell of a monologue to deliver. The backyard of the Clark family home was a stage set for a perfect life. Manicured gardens, a sparkling blue pool, and a massive white tent adorned with twinkling fairy lights and elaborate floral arrangements. The air buzzed with the polite chatter of Silverwood's elite, the clinking of champagne glasses, and the soft strains of a string quartet. Jason's mother, Martha, a woman whose kindness to me had always felt brittle and conditional, was holding court, beaming with pride. Jason stood beside her, his arm possessively around my waist, a performance of doting husband and proud father-to-be for the adoring crowd. He had spent the last 2 weeks begging, pleading, and love-bombing me, promising to tell me everything after the party, a desperate attempt to avoid ruining his parents' special day. I had agreed to attend, my placid composure a mask of steel. He had mistaken my cold, calculated silence for a willingness to forgive, to help him maintain the lie. He was an arrogant fool. After a lavish dinner, his father, Charles Clark, a proud, imposing man who commanded respect in every room he entered, stood to give the main toast. He raised his crystal flute. To my beautiful wife, Martha, the cornerstone of my life for 40 incredible years, he began, his voice booming with heartfelt emotion. He then turned his beaming paternal smile on Jason. And to my son, Jason, I have never been prouder of the man he has become. A leader in his field, a devoted husband to dear Alice, and soon a father. He is about to give us the greatest gift we could ever ask for, our first grandchild, who will carry on the Clark name. To Jason and Alice, and the beautiful, strong family they are building. To Jason and Alice! The 50 guests echoed, a chorus of approval. Glasses clinked. Faces turned to me, smiling with genuine warmth and happiness for us. Jason squeezed my waist, leaning in to whisper, "I love you," in my ear. The words, once the center of my universe, now felt like a venomous sting. That was my cue. With a calm, deliberate movement, I gently removed his arm from my waist. I stood up, my glass of sparkling water in my hand. A hush fell over the party as all eyes turned to me. I offered a serene, almost beatific smile that didn't come close to reaching my eyes. "Thank you, Charles," I began, my voice clear and steady, carrying effortlessly across the perfectly manicured lawn. "Those are beautiful words, and you are so right. Family is the most important thing in the world. Honesty, loyalty, and trust. Those are the true foundations of a family, which is why I believe it's so important that you all know the whole truth about this beautiful, strong family Jason and I are building." I let the words hang in the air for a beat. I saw Jason's smile freeze, and then begin to crumble. A look of pure, dawning horror spread across his face. "You see?" I continued, my gaze sweeping across the sea of silent, confused faces, before landing on his parents. "We have been trying for this baby for a very, very long time. I have spent the last 3 years enduring painful, invasive, and emotionally devastating treatments, all because I was led to believe that I was barren, that my body was broken." I paused, letting the weight of that sink in. "But we discovered something truly remarkable a few days ago at the clinic. It turns out my husband, your son, Jason, is sterile. He can't have children. He had a vasectomy 11 years ago before I ever met him." A collective audible gasp rippled through the crowd. I locked eyes with Charles and Martha. Their proud smiles had vanished, replaced by identical masks of slack-jawed disbelief and dawning shame. "He kept this a secret from me for our entire relationship, for our entire marriage," I said, my voice ringing with the cold, hard clarity of undeniable truth. He stood by and watched me suffer, emotionally and physically, for years. So you can imagine my surprise, and his, when I became pregnant. This child I am carrying, this grandchild you are all so excited to celebrate, is indeed a miracle, but it is not Jason's. My final act was to turn my gaze to his brother, Chris, who was standing near the bar, looking as if he'd been turned to stone. And Chris, his loyal brother, he knew the entire time. He helped him keep the secret. A true Clark family value, it seems. The silence that followed was absolute and crushing. It was the sound of a reputation being immolated. Charles's face was turning a shade of deep, apoplectic purple as he stared at his son with utter contempt. Martha had a hand clapped over her mouth, her eyes wide with horror and humiliation. Jason just stood there, stripped bare, exposed as a fraud and a monster in front of every person whose opinion he valued. His perfect world had been reduced to ashes in less than 2 minutes. I calmly placed my water glass down on the table, turned my back on the wreckage, and walked away, the silence following me all the way to my car. 3 months later, I stood in the center of a sun-drenched room, a paintbrush in my hand, the air thick with the clean, hopeful smell of latex paint. The walls were a soft, buttery yellow, the color of a new day. My new apartment was modest compared to the sprawling house in Silverwood, but it felt 1,000 times bigger, filled not with expensive lies and suffocating secrets, but with light, air, and boundless possibility. My belly was beautifully, undeniably large now, a constant, comforting weight that anchored me to my new reality. I was meticulously building a nursery, a sanctuary of peace and honesty for my daughter. Yes, I knew she was a girl. My girl. The divorce had been shockingly swift. Jason, utterly broken and shamed, had put up no resistance. His signature on the papers was weak and shaky, the signature of a defeated man. He had signed away the house and a generous settlement, then vanished from my life like a puff of smoke. Jessica had kept me updated on the fallout. The party had been the talk of Silverwood for weeks. Charles, a man whose entire identity was built on a foundation of integrity and family honor, had essentially disowned his son. He couldn't stomach the depth of the deception. Martha, humiliated beyond measure, couldn't even speak his name. It was Chris, consumed by a desperate, soul-crushing guilt, who had finally confessed the whole sordid story to his parents. The why? A rare genetic degenerative neurological disorder on their father's side, a condition that had claimed a great-uncle. Jason, in his monumental cowardice, was so terrified of passing it on that he chose sterility and a life of deceit over the simple courage of an honest conversation with the woman he claimed to love. The final nail in his coffin was when the story, inevitably, reached the senior partners at his firm. He was quietly let go for a breach of the company's character clause. His downfall was absolute, public, and exquisitely fitting. A profound, settled peace had taken root in my soul. I had made the decision not to pursue the identity of my daughter's biological father. It was a loose end I had no desire to tie. He was a product of a clinical procedure, a means to an end that had been twisted by Jason's lies. He didn't matter. This child, my daughter, was conceived in my hope, carried in my love, and would be raised in my truth. She was not a scandal or a secret. She was the beginning of my real life. My phone buzzed on the windowsill, startling me from my thoughts. It was a text from Jessica. Saw the crib was delivered. Need an extra pair of hands and a legal opinion on these assembly instructions? I'll bring pizza and ice cream. A genuine smile, wide and unburdened, spread across my face. I texted back, "Yes! You're an angel! Bring extra pickles for the ice cream." I placed my hand on my belly and was rewarded with a strong, definitive kick. A little hello from my daughter. "Just you and me, little one," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. "So we're going to be more than okay." And as the afternoon sun streamed into our new home, I knew with a certainty that reached down to my very bones that it was the truth. My life hadn't ended in that sterile clinic in Tallahassee. My real life had just begun. Virtue wasn't a weakness to be exploited. It was a compass. and it had finally guided me home.